question with the things like
well,
that. Just 'cause I had,
Gnosticism or agnosticism is a claim of knowledge.
right.
So are you making a claim of knowledge?
No, I'm just basically saying I had experiences which a lot of folks would probably claim as knowledge, or Christians would certainly claim as knowledge.
Okay. And what do you say about those experiences?
Again, you're breaking up a bit. I have a question for Matt, and then I'm going to get off into the line, and it goes to belief. It seems like a lot of Christians I've met say they believe in God, but I get the strong impression they really don't believe. And when people call up here your show, you know, the religious Christians, they're very angry at you for having this show and being atheist. To me, it's like several years ago I found a website called the Flat Earth Society, you know, Flat Earth Society. I thought it was kind of a comedy website, but when I went there, these guys are very serious about believing in a flat Earth.
Yeah.
They're not joking about that. They really believe there's a flat Earth. I just left. It was silly. And if I really believed in a God, I don't think I'd have a problem with atheists. I think they don't protest too much. And my question for Matt is this. You've been a Christian for a very long time. Did you really believe in this stuff, or were you, like, trying to believe in it? You know what I'm saying?
Both at different times.
Well, because like when you were young, you really believed. When you got older, no.
No, there were periods of time when I was young and when I was older that I believed, or, you know, professed belief at different times. I mean, I don't doubt that these people who call it, I mean, the idea that somebody's protesting too much is, you know, it's anecdotal, but by and large, I don't have any problem at all believing these people really believe this stuff, because I used to, and I know too many people who clearly do. Now, we can quibble about whether or not their actions actually match up to what they claim they believe. But I think that it's a complicated, the human mind and what you believe is a complicated landscape, and there are times in anybody's life where you believe things to, you know, greater and lesser degrees, and so I don't know that it has any.
Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to accept that they believe this, and part of it is because, you know, having been a believer myself at one point, I understand that it's possible to believe things for bad reasons. And that's essentially what happened with me. And when I discovered that those were bad reasons for belief, that kind of set me on a journey to discover, you know, what was real. And, you know, it ultimately led to my atheism. But, yeah, I think that they, for the most part, they do believe. And a lot of it is, you know, Tracy's done a lot of shows on childhood indoctrination, and that's a really powerful thing. And we have people who write to us who are atheists who still have a fear of hell because that's been indoctrinated into them. Do they really believe there's a hell anymore? On an intellectual level, they don't. But there are some emotional ties to that belief that, you know, people struggle with letting go. So, yeah, I think that for the most part, I'm willing to accept that believers actually do believe what they claim they believe.
Well, guys, thanks. I'm going to go because I can still like me. But thanks so much for the show. And
All right.
Take care.
Thank
you.
All right, David in Chicago.
Oh, hi, Mom.
You're on.
You're on.
Okay, cool. There's an echo, so I'm just going to ask my question and then just get off the air and let you guys answer if that's all right.
Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, my question's for Gene, but Matt, if you want to get in here too, you can a little bit.
Who's Gene?
On the beginning of the show, you guys talked about the Proposition 8 in California.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard, I think it was like on Fox News or MSNBC, that they were already expecting an appeal and it would most likely go to the Supreme Court. And obviously, I know that what you guys would want to happen if it went to the Supreme Court, but what do you think what will happen if it goes to the Supreme Court?
Okay.
That's my question.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
What I think will happen is that obviously it's going to the Ninth Circuit.
Yep.
And I think the Ninth Circuit will uphold the ruling because from what I've seen of it so far, it's legally sound. And I am not convinced that the Supreme Court is going to hear the case. So the Supreme Court may let the Ninth Circuit's ruling stand?
Yeah, I can't. I'm not a legal expert. No matter how much First Amendment law I end up reading, it doesn't help increase my credibility. I'm just a guy, so I'm giving you my best guess. I agree with Jen. I think the Ninth Circuit will uphold it. I don't think that the Supreme Court will touch it, but I think if they do, this is going to be one of the most interesting cases in the history of the world, because I don't see how they could possibly overturn it.
Yeah.
And this is why I think they won't touch it. In order for them to touch it and uphold the Ninth Circuit Court, you're going to have some of the most conservative and conservatively praised justices on the Supreme Court. One of them is going to have to do something that comes unexpected to the base. Mm-hmm. It may, shockingly, as much as I despise him, it may actually be Scalia. Yeah. I haven't seen him talk too much about same-sex marriage, and it's one of the reasons why I suspect that might be. I could be way wrong. I could just be like optimistically dreaming here, but honestly, I don't think they'll touch it. I think the Ninth Circuit will uphold it and it'll stand.
And I do think it very much depends on how the Ninth Circuit words its ruling because if they, there's a couple of ways they can do this. They can say, okay, we're going to uphold this, but it only applies to California. Or they can say, yeah, we're going to uphold this and it's unconstitutional and it applies everywhere in the jurisdiction of the Ninth Circuit, which has much broader implications there. So, I think whether or not the Supreme Court takes it depends on how the Ninth Circuit words their ruling.
Yeah, I think the only possible exception, and I haven't read the whole decision, and I don't know what the Ninth Circuit's going to say, so this may have already been covered. I just don't know if it's been covered enough. They might try to do it as a states' rights issue, which muddies the playing field quite a bit because you have this other issue of if you're married in one state, are you married in all states? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons I think they won't touch it, but I don't know.
Yep.
Just wild-ass guesses about what the Supreme Court may or may not do. We got Steve in Austin. How are you?
Yeah, how y'all doing?
Good.
Got a few things to say, but let me set up a premise with you real quick, okay?
Sure. Are you getting an echo?
Pardon me?
Are you hearing an echo?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll shut up and try and let you get your stuff out, and then I'll put you on hold so that you don't get the echo anymore.
Okay. Say you were a son or a daughter and your father went off to war, and you never met him because he got killed in battle, and all he left you was a letter. And it described what he wanted you to do with your life and how he wanted you to behave. But you never met the guy, and you don't even have a picture of him because, let's just say, your mother had to move and took you with, and all your belongings were left behind for whatever reason.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so hold this thought for a second. Now we have a Bible that has survived maybe 2,000 years of writings now true. It's been translated into religious doctrines, and every religion has their own agenda. But nevertheless, you have an intent of what God wanted you to know about him in these words. Now, I've analyzed the Bible from the Jehovah's Witness position, from the Catholic position, and from the Jewish position, and many others. And here's where I'm getting to as far as what I told the screener about the atheist doctrine. And what a doctrine to me is, you take these words that have been written down, and let's say you're Jewish. Well, you can take those words and you can turn it into a doctrine that says there was no Jesus Christ, the New Testament is fake, there's not enough proof for Jesus, but there is enough proof for Moses, and there was Israel, but we don't agree with the New Testament. Now, they have an agenda, and they'll use the words and they'll change them, and they've got all kinds of doctrines written as to why the New Testament is false. But then you have the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they'll say, well, Jesus was not God, he was a God, and that Jesus and Satan are brothers, and they get all these people to go out and collect money for them, and they have their agenda. And so let's look at the atheists for a second. You all say you're not a religion, but you are preaching a doctrine that takes those words, and I know all your arguments. I've debated atheists for the last 5 years. The one that when Jesus said, "This generation shall see my return," and they didn't see his return. But if you analyze the words, I can tell you what that means. Genius, the age. He said he'll return at the end of the age, not that generation. Y'all bring up the arguments about the Amalekites.
Hey, Steve?
Why did they,
Steve?
God tell them to be killed?
Hey, Steve?
Yeah.
Instead of telling me about all the other arguments that other atheists have presented, I mean, you're trying to make a case for atheist doctrine. Just make it.
What I'm saying is, your doctrine, this is a letter that's 2,000 years old, just like the Jewish people do or the Mormons do. If y'all were really atheists, you wouldn't even care about the Bible. You bring it up and say God's bad. When you want to talk about God, he's an evil God, or else there's no God. I wish y'all make up your mind. You're either anti-God or you don't care.
Are you saying that if somebody came to me and said that Darth Vader was a good person, that I shouldn't care? That it would be somehow invalid for me to say, look, this character's fictional, and if it were real, I would disagree with its positions?
Well, the reason you think he's fictional is because you talk to all these Christians and all they do is praise Jesus and don't study the Word.
No, sir.
No,
Steve. I used to be a Christian and was going to be a minister. It's not about talking about this. I didn't begin with an atheist presupposition and then try and prove it all false. Christianity and those people who would argue on its behalf have failed to meet the burden of proof for their claims.
Well, wait. You haven't got the burden of proof from Christians, because Christians, they have their own Bible dogma. The burden of proof is the Bible itself. If you want to be a doctor,
no. Steve,
if you want to be a lawyer, you study law.
Steve, a burden of proof. Wow, a burden of proof defines which position needs to establish that it is actually true. You can't say the burden of proof is the Bible. What you could say is that the thing that satisfies the burden of proof is the Bible, and that would then be an argument, and we could discuss whether or not the Bible satisfies that burden of proof.
Well, I understand. I know the atheist argument is called circular reasoning. You can't use the thing to prove itself. But you have to use the Bible to prove the Bible. There's nothing else that proves it better.
Well, then you're out of gas.
Yeah, you're done.
Well, excuse me?
You're done.
I mean if you're saying that the only way you can do it is by doing it, by engaging in circular reason, then you're admitting that you can't do it.
No, listen. You can't become a lawyer without reading law books. You can't become a doctor without reading medical books. You can't understand the personality of God without reading the Bible.
Actually, Steve, you couldn't possibly be more wrong. The first doctors didn't read any doctrine books. The first lawyers didn't read any lawyer books. And you haven't demonstrated that reading your Bible book does anything to produce any position that is true.
Okay, so let me end with one summary, and I'll give you the last word, okay?
I tell you what, I'll just take the last word, because you're not going to get to end with a summary, Steve. Sorry. If you're going to call up and say there's an atheist doctrine and then pretend to argue against arguments that we're not even making, why call the show? The answer to your question, the response to your assertion that if we really didn't believe in God, we wouldn't even care, is nonsense. The fact of the matter is I live in a world where people do believe in this God and do act on its behalf, and it doesn't matter whether or not they're correct, it's still wrong. Your analogy about getting a letter from my dad that I never knew is, I'm sorry, one of the biggest crocks of nonsense ever. Because so what? My mom gives me a letter from a man that I never knew and says, this is from your dad. Doesn't mean a thing to me. I can't be sure that it's from my dad. I'll trust my mom, generally speaking, because I know that I must have had a dad and that she'd probably know him. But I don't give a damn what's in that letter about how he wants me to live my life, because guess whose life it is? It's mine. Now, if my mom were to claim that this letter was from a man who had magical powers and wanted me to live my life a certain way, it still wouldn't matter, and I wouldn't believe her, because she has not met the burden of proof. It's absolutely absurd. There is no atheist doctrine. It isn't as if we've come up with this, we don't believe in this God and Jesus thing, so let's find all these ways to prove it wrong. No, we're sitting here, we're not selling something new. We're not buying what you're selling, and it's because none of you can sell it well. It's because you cannot defend your burden of proof. You cannot provide evidence that what you're saying is true, and you